What's up again, everybody? Well, I took a few days off to rest, relax, and I figured if I did take a few days off of making content and doing that, my voice would get better, but it hasn't. I guess I've done a lot of teaching this week, but I'm not going to let that stop me from talking about Runeblade. Look, if you don't know what we're doing with this entire series is we're breaking down every single card, giving them all-star rankings based on how I guess effective they can be, how powerful, how flexible, how useful across perhaps multiple different heroes, multiple different archetypes. And today's Runeblade time. We're going to break down all the Runeblade cards, give them a star ranking between 5, which is crazy uber super nuts, and 1 which is unplayable. Haven't given many 1s because this set is very well designed in my opinion, and I don't think we're going to get that many today because Runeblade is pretty good. Starting with Vexing Quillhand, the majestic Runeblade equipment. It blocks for nothing unless you want Arcane Barrier, in which case you can pay 1 into Arcane Barrier here, and you can stop 1 point of arcane damage. As far as what the actual equipment does, it says action, destroy it, and you create 2 rune chant tokens. Go again. I'm not gonna lie, when I first saw this card, I thought, wow, this card kind of sucks. But the more that I've thought about it and messed around with it, the more I've realized that it fits a fantastic little niche, and that is if you are playing into a very arcane heavy matchup and you want Arcane Barrier, it's an easy swap out for the gloves that you would normally run, like Grasp of the Arknight. Doesn't have any utility if you're trying to block out arcane damage. Obviously this does, because it has Arcane Barrier 1. There's also just the option that you play this in shorter games, in faster matchups where you just want the 2 rune chant tokens to go. If you're playing in an archetype that's just super aggro, or if you're playing in Blitz where you only need a few rune chants on a very specific turn to just really push for it. And sometimes you're sitting in this awkward moment where you can't actually use Grasp of the Arknight because it costs so much after you've made a few rune chants. And so this actually subs in nicely in a lot of scenarios. So I think this is a really playable card, one that when I first looked at it, I did not expect much out of it. And the more I've thought about it, the more I realize this card is super good. I think this is a solid little 4-star majestic equipment while I smack around the mic on accident. Now we talk about Runic Reclamation, a 3-cost majestic 7 attack. Very important to note, it's a 7 attack, 3 block majestic attack. And it says when Runic Reclamation hits a hero, destroy target aura they control. And if you do, you create a rune chant token. Forget about the rune chant token, it's not that impactful. What's really impactful is that this is a 3 for 7, which is fantastic against Prism, that destroys auras if it hits, which is fantastic against Prism. There's a lot of good things here if you're playing against Prism, and there's a lot of people that are saying they want to play Prism in the upcoming Pro Quests. Because of that very simple thing, I think this is already a natural sideboard card. It also pops Phantasms because it's a 7. The fact that it's a 7, oh look, there it is right there, we go. The fact that it's a 7 is fantastic too, because you can play it into my favorite Herald of Triumph, and it still pops Herald of Triumph, unless they do some weird tricky things that are not usually played, fringe playables within Prism that can lower what is it, Blinding Beam? Exactly, Blinding Beam. This card's super nuts into that matchup, and it's something you can also just play. Before this, you were playing 9th Blade of the Blood Oath, and you have to pay a bunch if you actually want to play that card down, and it pops for 9. This is a 3 for 7. You could legit just run this and play this out there. Plus, there are more classes that are building up the auras, and this does have play into Guardian if you are trying to destroy, if there are a lot of auras floating around in Guardian, which to a certain degree you can kind of see some aura play in Guardian. Seismic Surge tokens, for example, you can destroy some of those, which is pretty cool. So this does have threats in a lot of ways. There are other auras that they can actually play down, like Nerves of Steel and Showtime, things like that. But those, you'll see them. What I'm trying to say is this has a lot of playability outside of just being a fantastic sideboard card for the Prism matchup. So again, this for me is a super solid 4 out of 5 stars. Wow. That's pretty good. 4 out of 5, 4 out of 5. It's a good thing we have this bad card to talk about, am I right? This card that's not good at all. Swarming Gloomveil. It's a card that costs 0. Everyone loves to pay for their cards. So a card that costs 0, no one cares. It blocks for 3, so at least there's that. It could block for 4, though, so let's be honest. It only attacks for 3, and that's the real kicker. That's why this card is not good at all. It's 0 for 3. And yet the ability just makes it so fantastic. This card's incredible. If you have played or created one or more auras this turn, Swarming Gloomveil gains Go Again. So first of all, immediately just with that, you can play this in all 3 Runeblades, and that is huge. Same with the other 2 cards, and in fact, I probably should have mentioned that earlier. With the other 2 cards, you can also play those in all 3 Runeblades. They have utility thus far in all 3 heroes. This is well designed by LSS, because if you print a card that's literally only playable for one of the 2 heroes too many times, then you get that teetering imbalance, or you get the feeling of like, well, yes, this is a ranger card, or yes, this is a mechanologist card, or yes, this is a ninja card, but it's really only for that one person. In this scenario, because we have 3 varying Runeblades, and 2 of which are very one way, and one of which is sort of another, we have a card that can be played by all 3. You can all create auras, and if doing so, just creating one, this gains Go Again. If you've played or created 2 or more auras, it gains +1, and if you've played or created 3 or more auras, it gains, when this hits a hero, they can't prevent arcane damage from sources you control this turn. That's so unfair. This is definitely a contender for one of the most powerful cards in the entire game. Entire set at least, but the entire game certainly. It's a 0 for 4 with Go Again most of the time because you can create 2 auras fairly easily. Rune Chants, Soul Shackles. You can't create 2 Soul Shackles on a turn, so there is that. But Rune Chant and a Soul Shackle counts. You create embodiments. You can count this along with that. This card is so flexible and plays in all 3. This is an uber nuts. There's no way I don't give this a 5-star. This has to be a 5-star card, and it's one of the best cards in the entire set and perhaps the entire game. And oh, it goes to Runeblade. You know, honestly, here's the thing too. I mean, it's kind of sad because I actually really like Runeblade, and I know there's a lot of people that are like, Runeblade, no, but I'm not gonna lie, I really like Runeblade, and so it's like this card is so tight. It's so tight. Okay, Revel in Runeblood. Can we not get a good, like, let's just get a not good Runeblade card. This is not that one, but we'll in a bit we'll get a not good Runeblade card. This card is also good. It is a 0 cost Runeblade action. If you've played an attack action card and another non-attack action card this turn, create 4 Rune Chant tokens. Now, that is an interesting stipulation because if you're watching how you play these things out, let's see, in Viserai, you can do this very easily, or fairly easily, by going Mauvrian Sky's attack, right? You know, like an attack action card. So that's not bad. In Chain, it's very easy as long as you're playing enough non-attacks. You can play like, what is it? Minnowism into an attack, and that seems pretty easy. Minnowism into any attack seems fine. And in Briar, there's a cornucopia of ways to trigger this. If you do trigger this, then you create 4 Rune Chant tokens, and then there is this stipulation. At the beginning of your end phase, destroy all Rune Chants you control. Now Go Again. But this is very much more leaning the mid-range to aggressive archetype of Runeblade, because this is just a full stop nope once you get to destroy all Rune Chants for OTK. You're never playing this in OTK. You're putting in the sideboard maybe, because I do think that Viserai OTK deck is super good because of how flexible it can be, because of you know, how like it can go into a matchup, diagnose the matchup, and swap its strategy, which is one of the reasons why it's my favorite deck in this format. That is super cool, but you're never playing it into the full OTK because you're never just destroying your win condition by playing this card. That is not a reason to knock this in any way, shape, or form in a large way. Just understand that it's not going in that one place, but it's going in like everything else, because creating 4 Rune Chant tokens and then pushing is very good. It's almost like Runeblood Barrier, except Runeblood Barrier cost 3, I think. I'm doing this off the top of my head. I think Runeblood Barrier cost 3, maybe 2. I can't recall. But it cost a lot, and this costs nothing. except the stipulation that you have had to play an attack and non-attack, and that's, by the way, like what Runeblade wants to do. It's another 4-star card. All of these so far have been 4- and 5-star card. Will we ever get one that's not? No. Runeblood Incantation cost 1. It's an aura. It blocks for 2, so boo on it. It blocks for 2. It has go again. It says Runeblood Incantation enters the arena with 3 verse counters on it. At the beginning of your action phase, remove a verse counter from Runeblood Incantation, and if you do, you create a rune chant token. Basically, consider this a 1-cost read the runes. Think of it as a 1-cost read the runes. The red creates 3 rune chant tokens, the yellow 2, the blue 1. But instead of doing it all at once, you do it over a couple of turns. Now, there's benefits and drawbacks to this. Obviously, a drawback here is you have to pay 1 for this, whereas a Read the Runes costs you nothing, okay? Both block for 2. This one's an aura, so if your opponent has, like, aura hate, then technically this can get destroyed before you get full value out of it. The benefit is that if you're playing a strategy that is pure Runeblade, in the idea that Runeblade as a class wants to go split damage each turn and like threaten you with multiples of damage, this is actually probably better in a lot of cases because it enables that split damage in a more threatening time frame because it's happening over multiple turns. So you play like the red out, and then over the course of 3 turns it ticks down, makes you a rune chant each time, which again is also beneficial if you're playing cards that get discounted by the number of rune chants that you create or the rune chants that you have, which has been a deck idea that I've played around with since Arcane Rising came out, and since we got all of the Viserai Runeblade cards that like discount based on rune chants. And they were always okay, but they never felt fantastic because you had to go about each turn creating rune chants in a variety of different ways in order for you to get the discount on them. This card enables those to be better, and that's why I think this card is really cool, because it makes you go back and look at old cards and go, okay, this card was not quite cutting it back when I played it then. Something like a Drawn to the Dark Dimension that gets discounted by the number of rune chants that you control. But all of a sudden, you play something like this that's generating you 1 a turn for basically free. Like you're paying 0.33 resources. You know, if you're thinking about it in the fact that it's lasting 3 turns and it's creating a rune chant. Like each rune chant costs less because you're not having to create a new one each turn. This card, in my opinion, is a 4-star as well. I think these are crazy good. These cards are crazy, crazy good. Now we come to Drowning Dyer, which costs 2. It attacks for 5 on red. The yellow attacks for 4. The blue attacks for 3. Blocks 3. And it says if you've played or created an aura this turn, it gains Dominate. So this could be a 2 for 5 with Dominate, or 2 for 4 with Dominate. It also says this: if it hits, or when it hits, you may put a non-attack action from your graveyard on the bottom of your deck. Now, I'm sitting here thinking, like, yes, there's a benefit here, an immediate benefit in that you're almost always creating an aura as a Runeblade player in some way, shape, or form, or you have the capacity to. But do you care about the second effect? Maybe not so much. I mean, you could say, like, yes, I want to go and grab more Read the Runes and put them back on the bottom of my deck, or you know, I want to go and grab, you know, like a Minnowism, put it on the bottom of the deck, or some, what's the Earth Seeds of Agony? Why do I always blank on the name of this dumb card? It's the one that's in Earth. Whatever. It's that one. You know, the one, Bramble Spark. Why do I always blank on Bramble Spark? I have to memorize that better. Bramble Spark, you can go and fetch that, put it on the bottom. There's like a variety of things that you can go and grab, but do you actually care about that? Oftentimes, I think the answer is no, because if you're playing like these mid-range or aggro decks, which is where you'd probably run this, you win the game before you see the bottom of your deck, or you die. I mean, it's one of those two. So like if you're playing this exactly in chain, so that you can reload the bottom of your deck when you go through and like banish a bunch of stuff. It makes some sense there. But even then, it just feels sort of like a head scratcher because it just costs a little bit more than I would want to pay. Now, it is Dominate, and that is great. But there's no Go Again attached, so if you're playing this in chain, then you're just sitting there thinking, okay, I have to use my Shackle on this, or it's at the end of my turn. when I could have already baited out all my opponent's cards. So for me, this one's a bit of a head scratcher. I give this a 2-star. Let me know in a comment below if you think this card's better than I do. I would love to hear your reasoning, and perhaps I haven't thought about that. There have been fantastic comments all throughout this entire series. If you want to watch any of those other videos, feel free to, look up at the tabs as they pop up there, and join in, chime in, leave your comments down below. Let me know, because I love reading along with them. Reek of Corruption also costs 2. It's a 2 for 4 as red, which means you get it as a 2 for 3 and a 2 for 2, depending on if it's yellow or blue. And it says, if you've played or created an aura this turn, Reek of Corruption gains. When this hits a hero, they discard a card. Now, this is kind of like a Consuming Volition, except Consuming Volition wanted you to deal arcane damage, and you got this same sort of effect. The problem with this, again, is that it costs 2, and that's more expensive than you probably want to be spending in a lot of scenarios. So for me, for the exact same reasons as we see with the previous card, Drowning Dyer, I think this one is a 2-star card as well. So yes, it's not all 4s and 5s, but this card's interesting. Shrill of Skullform also costs 2. It attacks for 4 on red. The 3 block is good, obviously, and it says if you've played or created an aura this turn, it gains +3. Now this is more like it, because this gaining +3 makes sense as a 2 for 7, and you're almost always going to trigger this because Runeblade does Runeblade things. And so for me, this is a solid 3-star card. I could see people playing this. Now, maybe you don't see it at like high-level events and high-level tables, but this is a playable, solid little card. More so, in my opinion, than the previous 2 that we talked about. So I'm giving Shrill of Skullform a solid little 3-star ranking, and I am going to mess around with the red. I do think the red pushing 7 just seems really solid. Perhaps a sort of like a pseudo E-Strike, in a way that if you're playing in Chain, for example, you can give Go Again, or Embodiment of Lightning if you're playing Briar, or if you're going Viscera, you just play Mauvrion Skies. Technically, all 3 decks could play Mauvrion Skies as well. Plus, that artwork is so sick. This is the card that blew my mind when I opened it for the first time. Absolutely crazy. That's Runeblade. Runeblade good. Runeblade. I just need a sign that said like Runeblade good. I should just write that on a card, hold it up right here, because these cards are super solid. A lot of very powerful stuff. It's funny how good Runeblade has been for so long, and they're still getting good stuff. And honestly, like I said, I actually really enjoy Runeblade, so I'm not hating it, but I can understand why other people might be hating it. If you enjoyed this video, if you liked it, feel free to make the number go to the number. Look at that, we're almost to 8,000. That's so exciting. Guys, you're amazing for making this number go up. If you made this number go up, you're really cool. As always, everybody, thanks for watching.